So we're going to ignore the mess behind me because if you watch my mail sack videos, you'll know that I got a lot of games this last week. Actually, because those videos come out later, you might not know that yet. But the point is, a bunch of games came. And in addition to that, I've wrapped up one of my games. So I was like going through my shelves, looking for something else to play. And I did that all this weekend. And it is now Monday, and it is lunchtime. And I'm filming this at lunch, and I haven't cleaned any of it up. So ignore the mess. What am I playing? Alright, so, first game, Lords of the Fallen. Played this on PlayStation 5, co-op with my friends. Also played it on PC and on my Steam Deck, off and on co-op with my friends. So, we finished Lords of the Fallen this last weekend. Let's see, it's complicated because we had, I had 3 games going. I had my Infernal build and my Radiant build, and then I very recently, like within the last week, started my Occult. It's not Occult, it's Umbral. Terminology. I started my Umbral build. And then I have a friend. One of my friends had an Umbral build and an Inferno build. And then another friend had a kind of a strength, just kind of a pure strength build. He wasn't casting anything. And then he recently started a new one that is Radiance, I believe. And we finished the game for 2 of my characters, 2 of one of my other friend's characters, and 1 of the final friend's characters. So what is that? That would be 5 endings. 5 endings that we saw this last weekend. And the thing is that all but one of them were the standard Radiant ending, the one that's really easy to get, because each of us fucked up other endings that we were going for, except for one who managed to get the Umbral ending. So the point is that, yeah, I'm going to have to play it again if I want to see the other endings. But we did beat it, what did I say, 4 times? And, you know, it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. I guess now that I've finished the game, I can kind of give you my final thoughts on it, kind of like a final review. I know I don't really do reviews. I kind of do more, I guess what I'm doing would be described more as an impression, but I'll give you my final thoughts. So Lords of the Fallen, let's first talk about some of the bad stuff, because there's quite a bit of bad stuff. We should talk about that first. First off, it's buggy. I mentioned before that it's got a lot of jank, it's got a lot of bugs, a lot of issues. There's a lot of co-op bugs where, you will go co-op with a friend and then switch. Maybe you want to switch and invite them into your game, and even though co-op just worked, you just spent like 2 hours playing co-op, now that you're trying to start a new co-op session, it won't work until you restart the game. Like, there's some sort of bug in their network code that they have not addressed. I don't know, honestly what the deal is, but it's obnoxious. In addition to that, it's got a pretty shitty frame rate at times. It's a pretty taxing, pretty demanding game, and, you play it on something like the PlayStation 5, it's gonna chug, which is unfortunate, because it shouldn't, but it does. Speaking of the frame rate, it's an Unreal Engine 5 game, which I think is part of the problem. I think that UE5 is not quite ready, or rather, it's ready for the next gen consoles. it doesn't seem like UE5 is optimized very well for current consoles. This is only like one of maybe a couple of UE5 games that I have played on the console on modern like PlayStation 5, and they've all kind of universally had performance problems. So it is way too demanding of your hardware. I mean, it really is entirely too demanding. Even on PC, I've got a big monster rig with, it's not the latest, greatest NVIDIA graphic card, but it's the latest, greatest NVIDIA graphic card from about a year ago. I don't know the exact model number because I don't really pay attention to these things. But even with that, it's like, you start playing the game and the fans just start going crazy because it's just a very demanding game, and I would say that it's almost entirely due to Unreal Engine 5. What are some other problems? Well, I would say the final boss is very disappointing. It's a game that's got a lot of great bosses, but man, that final boss is just this silly, stupid gimmick, and it was rather disappointing. It was not... one of my friends really felt that it was a bad way to end a great game. Like, he was extremely disappointed with that boss. In addition to that, the endings are very disappointing. The endings really... There's a tiny little cutscene that happens, and then I wouldn't say it's a wall of text, but it's a bunch of text, that scrolls by that you have to read. And I don't know, it's 2024. This game came out in 2023. I think we're past having text-only endings in games like this. It's kind of lame to encounter a modern game that has the fidelity that this game has, and then to have like a text ending is kind of a real bummer. In addition to that, it's got a lot of balance issues. If you are playing as a Radiant build, the game is going to be cake, like completely and totally cake. Radiance is incredibly overpowered in this game. If you're playing as an Inferno build, Inferno is also fairly overpowered. You might not have the same survivability as the Radiance build, but you definitely have the damage. You definitely have the damage output. So, you're going to have an easier time as an Infernal build. But if you play as an Umbral build, man, Umbral builds are hard to get right. You're going to be playing for a long time before you feel powerful enough to really be able to solo a lot of the game. And that kind of sucks. It kind of sucks that both Radiance and Inferno are so vastly overpowered compared to Umbral. That's a little bit of a disappointment. Another issue, and this is something I mentioned before, it's got utterly useless shortcuts. I mean, it really does. The shortcuts... Every once in a while, you'll get a shortcut that's useful, but the vast majority of them are completely stupid and bonehead, and they don't provide any sort of convenience whatsoever. And I guess one final issue with the game is that it is entirely too easy to fuck up quests. Every single NPC, as far as I know, has its own quest, and it is way easy to just completely fuck up the quests. It's also really easy to fuck up the endings. Which is why 4 of our endings that we achieved over this weekend were all Radiance, because if you fuck stuff up, it's it's almost like the default is the Radiant ending. Like, it's the ending that if you screw up everything else, that's what you're going to get. And yeah, it is way too easy to just completely mess up the quest as you're playing through the game. There's a whole lot of I have to invite this very specific NPC into this battle in order to progress their quest line. But in order to invite any NPCs to your battle, you have to first fail the battle first. And there's just a whole lot of little stuff like that, a whole lot of things where it's like, or other situations where it's like, now before continuing, I have to go and do this whole other thing. Like, for example, with the Umbral ending, you get up and you kill the Skin Stealer boss, but then if you take the elevator immediately behind the Skin Stealer boss, you have now fucked up the Winterberry questline. The Winterberry / Byron questline. In fact, Winterberry will not even appear in your game. Like, she will be dead in your game. So if you want to use her as a merchant, well, too bad. Or Damaros. If you light just one beacon, you have messed up Damaros's questline. So it's entirely too easy to mess up the quest line. So those are the bad things. Let's talk about some of the good things, because ultimately, at the end of the day, I really did enjoy Lords of the Fallen, in spite of all these problems. So let's talk about some of the things that are good. Well, the first one I mentioned last week. This plays a lot more like Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. In other words, it plays like games that From Software doesn't seem willing to make anymore. Which, if you're somebody who really loves those early Dark Souls games, this is like a breath of fresh air. You know, it's something that it's comfort food. It's familiar. It's fun. And like I said, they just, this is the type of game that From Software just doesn't seem interested in making anymore. So it is really fun to encounter somebody else who is so lovingly crafting a Dark Souls 1 / Dark Souls 2 experience. The game also has incredible level design. Like, some of these levels are utterly, utterly gorgeous. Incredibly beautiful stuff. Aside from the shortcuts that are kind of meaningless, the levels themselves are very well put together. The world fits together in a logical and cohesive way, and it's a lot of fun to explore. It's just a lot of fun to just wander off and encounter things in this game. And, I mean, they totally nailed that. They totally got it right. One other good thing is that if you do have powerful hardware, if you're playing this on PC, like I said, it's a beautiful game. There are sections of it that are utterly gorgeous. You play this in 4K with an internal rendering resolution that's fairly high, fairly close to 4K, and it's a gorgeous game. It is really stunning. You play it on the PlayStation 5. It can be really gorgeous as long as you're not, in the heat of battle or there's not a lot of particle effects, but it can be gorgeous there as well. So the point is that, yeah, when under the right circumstances, this game is utterly gorgeous. It's the sort of thing where I feel like if, like a PlayStation 6 comes out and it is backward compatible, this would be a great game to play on that. Like, it feels like it just needs a little bit more power than the PlayStation 5 has. What else is good? Well, it's got a really great story. Like, the story, a lot of the times these Souls games don't have, their stories are good, but they're really obtuse, and you have to read a lot of lore, and you've got to really study the game to really get the story, and then all of a sudden it appears, it's a really good story. This game just has a good story that is presented well and is not opaque. It's got lots of good cutscenes, aside from the ending, that kind of progress the story well. A lot of voice acting. It's a good game. It's got great story. It's got some parts of the story that are really tragic and sad. Like, the whole Byron sub-story is really quite sad. It's also got some incredible boss battles. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There are some really great, very memorable boss battles here that I really enjoyed. And I guess the final good thing is that, when co-op works, I mentioned that co-op can be a little bit buggy, but when it works amazingly well. In fact, I would say that it works better than co-op in any other From Software or any other Souls-like that I have played co-op with. A lot of the times these games, when you finish a boss, you're immediately kicked out of the co-op session. Here, you're not. Like, you can just keep playing co-op and move on to the next area, move on to the next boss, which, if you're playing a game like this in co-op, is really good. It's really awesome to not have to constantly, go out and re-invite because, hey, we just finished a boss. So when co-op works, it works really well. I guess, the bottom line is, it's a great game. I really enjoyed it. It's got a lot of flaws. It's got a lot of jank. But if you can get past all of that stuff, it's a very enjoyable experience. And it is something that I really loved. I have no regrets spending as much time playing it as I have. And in fact, I've already mentioned that I've got a third character that I've started. I intend to go through and finish it and see all of the endings. So I'm going to play it at least 2 more times. Now, does that mean I'm going to be mentioning it here on these What Am I Playing videos? I don't know. It kind of depends on how much time the previous week I spend playing the game. I will also say I've got kind of a hard deadline. The next Yakuza game, the next the follow-up to Like a Dragon. I think it's called Infinite Wealth. That thing comes out on like the 26th of January. When that game gets here, I pre-ordered it. I got it from PlayAsia, so it might take like an extra week to get here. But when that game gets here, whatever else I'm playing is going to kind of become very secondary because I intend to immediately start playing the next Yakuza game when it gets here. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm going to keep playing Lords of the Fallen and try to get the rest of the endings before Yakuza comes out. But then when Yakuza comes out, I'm going to switch, and that's going to be the main thing I'm playing. And I don't know if I'll talk about Lords of the Fallen again next week or any other weeks. I might keep playing it just silently and not report on it. But I enjoyed it, Lords of the Fallen. I really, really loved it. Kind of, ignore the Steam reviews. I feel like people were a little bit too harsh in those reviews. It's a much better game than the reviews would lead you to believe. But I enjoyed it. Lords of the Fallen. A lot of fun. All right, what's the next game? Well, the next game is brand new. Well, brand new to me and brand new to these videos, and that is Monster Train First Class. I'm playing this on the Nintendo Switch. So Monster Train is actually a game that I got a while ago, and for whatever reason, I just never tried it until now. I'm trying to remember if this was a limited run games. Yeah, it's got limited run written on it, but it's not a numbered release. It's probably one of their, what do they call it? The distributed line. But the game is, it's like Slay the Spire, but all the combat takes place on these trains. These trains that have like 4 decks on them, which is bizarre. And enemies start at the bottom deck, and they move up to the top, and then when they get to the top, there's like it's called a pyre. But there's this thing that you have to defend from the enemies. And if they get up to the top layer, then they just have free access and they can just attack it. So you've got to defeat them or weaken them sufficiently before they get up to the 4th floor to prevent them from killing your pyre. So it's very much a Slay the Spire style game. The basic story behind it is a little bit wild, a little bit weird. The idea is that, the armies of heaven have come and taken over hell, and the last burning ember of hell, the pyre, is now powering a train that is moving through hell with additional demons on it, and it's trying to basically reclaim hell from the angels. And it's basically what it is. It's a silly little story, it's a silly little premise, but it's very fun. Like I said, it's a Slay the Spire style game. It's definitely a roguelite. It's the sort of thing where one more run, you just gotta get a little bit further each time. If I had any complaints, the big complaint that I would have is that between the runs, there's not a whole lot of persistent unlockables. There's no shop to take currency and then go upgrade your train or upgrade your characters. It's all something that happens pretty exclusively in the runs. But there are new things that are unlocked as you go along. As you level up the different factions, you get more cards and things like that. So there's sort of a persistent thing, but it's not, I don't know. I feel like it's lacking. I feel like I'd really like to have like a shop where I could go spend currency to upgrade, basic stats and stuff like that. That's something that a lot of these roguelike games have, and Monster Train doesn't have it, and you definitely feel it. But all that being said, I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. If you're looking for another Slay the Spire style game and you haven't heard of Monster Train, then yeah, you should check it out. I'm pretty sure it's available on all the platforms. I just so happen to be playing it on the Switch. As far as a Switch port is concerned, it seems performant, it seems fine, but it's also not a game that's terribly demanding. It's not terribly taxing of the system. So, it's not something that's going to require a lot of extra hardware that the Switch doesn't have. So I guess, what I'm saying is that the Switch port is perfectly fine. So if you want to play it on the Switch, it's awesome. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. I don't know how many weeks I'm going to be mentioning it. I don't know how long I'm going to be playing it. I do have a feeling that I might be near my limit for how much I'm enjoying it. I went through and I actually made it to the final boss. There's additional stuff after that, but I don't really know if I'm going to keep grinding at it to get all the additional stuff afterwards. I'm enjoying it, but I'm not sure I'm enjoying it that much. But yeah, no, Monster Train, it's a good game. A lot of fun. All right, so next up, I am playing Heretic's Fork. I'm playing this on Steam, and a little bit on my Steam Deck, but mostly on my PC. I mentioned Heretic's Fork last week. I don't have anything new to really say about it. It's a lot of fun. It's for a roguelite, this is a really good roguelite. It's a really good roguelite auto battler if you are all into that. And I think I mentioned last week that this is a good game to play while you're doing other things. And that's really become where I have predominantly been playing it lately. I play it on my Steam Deck, but the big asterisk is that, it doesn't support controller. So it's keyboard and mouse only. So when I play it on my Steam Deck, I am mostly playing it on my Steam Deck with my Steam Deck docked and with an external mouse controlling it. And I'll play it in my office. I'll be having a build run, and while I'm waiting for the build to happen, I'll go over there and set up my cards, and then I'll let it go and do its auto-attacking thing while I'll finish my work and do more things. It's a really great roguelike auto battler if you are not focusing on the game. A great little palate cleanse for doing other things. It also has got a really good soundtrack. There's, it's not often that you can just have a game that you can sit there and just listen to the soundtrack and not actually play. But that's exactly what this is, and it's got some fun tunes. I'm not really sure what I'd classify the tunes as. There's some vaguely metal stuff, some vaguely industrial techno stuff, but it's not something I would necessarily go out of my way to just listen to. But having it play in the background is awesome. It's fun and it's good stuff. There's a story here, but I don't know. There's an awful lot of reading emails and stuff like that I just get bored with. So I will admit I'm not spending a whole lot of time trying to suss out what the underlying story of this game is. It's just ultimately just a really good auto battling roguelike that you can just play in between things. But I'm enjoying it. Heretic's Fork. I recommend it very highly. All right, so the last game that I'm playing is also on Steam, playing this mostly on PC, although I have played a little bit on my Steam Deck, and that is Cultic. So Cultic is a boomer shooter. That's what everybody's calling these days. These are the kind of retro-inspired first-person shooters, things that play a lot more like Quake or the old Doom, the original Doom, although I guess modern Doom is also a boomer shooter. Cultic is more Quake-style boomer shooter. Everything is polygonal. There's not a whole lot of flat textures, although there's some voxel stuff in there, which I was a little surprised to find. It's kind of inspired by Dusk, which was a fairly recent boomer shooter, if you've ever played that. In that the premise and the setting is very similar to Dusk. You're trying to thwart a cult that is doing some sort of bad thing. And, you're moving through the areas, from area to area, shooting cultists and doing stuff like that. And it's fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's got some great set pieces. It's also got some really good really fun to find secrets that I'm really enjoying. You know, I really love these classic boomer shooters, but one of the things I really love about them is when they have really good secrets, like something where, you know, there's like a hidden wall or a hidden door in a wall that you go behind and there's some special weapon that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten here. I really enjoy that sort of stuff, and Cultic definitely has that in spades. I feel like I'm getting near the end of the game, so I might not mention it again next week. I might finish it this week and just be done with it. But I'm enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. If you are looking for another boomer shooter, check Cultic out. It's great. I have no outro. I will admit I'm tired. Like I said, it's a Monday, and you know Mondays are always, I don't know, the whole Garfield I hate Monday thing. They're always low energy, and I'm always tired and stuff. So I don't know if I've got a joke in me. So I just go take a nap. Although I can't. I got to go back to work after lunch. Balls. Anyway, see ya.